wrong. This is unlawful. As I argued in my last report to the Human Rights Council, this genocide has become profitable, unfortunately, not just for some corrupt private entities. And this is not only Israel's crimes, this is a world's crime sustained by silence, complicity and the supply of funds, weapons and political cover. History will remember, because no, it's not that this is the first genocide that is been known. No, the Holocaust, the genocide in Bosnia, the genocide in Rwanda were also known to the people of the time. But this genocide happened because the world didn't care enough to stop them, like today, or not. But today's genocide has something different. It's openly incited, cynically denied, and relentlessly supported, armed and weaponized, while those who oppose it are silenced, beaten, criminalized and smeared. This is why I say this is the shame of our time, and the collapse of the international legal order lays in this moment, not only for the Palestinians but for all of us. So I asked prime ministers, presidents, foreign ministers, so-called world leaders, how do you sleep? When will you act, truly act beyond the words? But I also see courage. Dock workers, trade unions, students, mothers and fathers, ordinary people everywhere are refusing this complicity. And their message is clear. No more genocide, no more apartheid, starting in Palestine. The future millions demand is one of justice, equality and freedom, and is still within reach if we act now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Albanese. Our next speaker will be the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression. Ms. Khan, you have the floor.
Thank you. I will just say a few words to complement what Francesca Albanese has said. And I will, of course, focus on the issue of my own mandate, freedom of expression. Gaza has become the deadliest conflict ever for journalists. More journalists have been killed in Gaza than in both world wars, Vietnam War, wars in Yugoslavia, and the war in Afghanistan combined, according to one research institute. As Francesca mentioned, the UN number right now is 252, but that is, of course, likely to go up because every week we hear news of more killings. In August alone, 9 journalists were killed in 3 horrific, bloody incidents, as you may remember. Many of these 252 journalists have been targeted, by which we mean deliberately picked out and killed because of the work that they are doing to expose the atrocities, the crimes, the genocide on the ground. Let me spend 1 minute on the strategy that Israel seems to have developed, where they will first delegitimize and discredit a journalist. Smear campaigns are started, accusing the journalists of being terrorist supporters or terrorists themselves, and then they are killed. So it is not just killing journalists, but killing. The attempt is being very clearly made here to kill the story, because journalists, local journalists in Gaza today, are carrying the brunt of that killing spree, because they are the only ones who are there. Gaza, what is happening in Gaza is extremely unusual in that I cannot recall another situation where a member state of the United Nations has denied access to independent international media for a conflict, for atrocities, for the unfolding of genocide, and now genocide actually happening over almost 3 years at this stage. We have not seen in any other country a situation like that happening, where international media are being denied independent access. The burden then falls on the local journalists who are being picked out, as I mentioned, and killed, labeled as terrorists and killed. Journalism is not terrorism. Journalism is not a crime. Journalists are civilians under international humanitarian law and therefore protected like other civilians. However, journalists, because of the nature of their war, have to go where the fighting is. They cannot flee away from the fighting, and they are being then deliberately picked out and killed. International media have been denied access. Al Jazeera has been actually banned from even operating in the West Bank or in Israel itself. What we see here, therefore, is, as Francesca Albanese, as you know, has written about the anatomy of genocide and the economy of genocide, and I would say that the story of the way in which journalists are being killed, silenced, killing journalists, murdered, in fact, is the cover-up of genocide, because these local journalists are the main source for news right now from the ground up. And if they can be stopped, if the information that is leaking out to the world can be stopped somehow, the Israeli Defense Forces believe that they can continue to do what they are doing with impunity. And that actually is the critical word here, impunity. Israel has never been held accountable. Israel has never allowed independent investigation of a single killing of a journalist ever in the Palestinian occupied territories. We have cases going back 20 years that have not ever been investigated internationally. And that, of course, has created this environment of permissibility in which the Israeli Defense Forces can do what they want to destroy those who are daring to expose the truth on the ground. And that, to me, is a big tragedy, certainly for the journalists themselves, certainly for the genocide in Gaza, but I think for media freedom around the world. A terrible precedent here is being made, and those countries that champion media freedom, those who speak about independent media, I hold them responsible at this stage. They must bring pressure to bear on Israel to allow independent investigation of the killings, to allow international access to international independent media. The very presence of international independent media will give some degree of protection to local journalists who are out there working alone, and of course, to stop the killing itself. Without journalists, we know that this story will never be complete. The information will be very difficult to get. Already, local journalists are suffering the same conditions like the rest of the population, looking for food, water, shelter. They've had family members killed, and yet they continue. Many of them continue very bravely to report. But how long can that can go on happening? In fact, in my last press release, the title was "States Must Stop Israel Before All Journalists in Gaza Are Silenced." And that is what I fear. I hope very much that you will speak up for those in your own community, journalists in your own professional community. Speak up loud and clear that this must come to an end and Israel must be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Moving to our speakers online, we'll now hear from Mary Lawler, the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders. Ms. Lawler, please go ahead.